All right, I think we will go ahead and get started. So welcome to our Dad's panel here, and we have their names and names of their little ones listed on the slide there and in order of how they're seating. So we have Aaron and Darren and Mark and Samuel and Walter. And then Muswamba, whom you guys all know, is going to be our moderator.
Okay, we're going to get started. All right. It's for you all. Okay, I have a bunch of questions, so are you ready for my questions? They are so ready. All right, they won't scare because they are fathers. They're all fathers, and some are becoming fathers. I think Aaron is becoming father again. Okay, can you tell us one sentence, what about breastfeeding? Why are you excited about breastfeeding? Or the next one.
Okay, get it close. Okay. Well, breastfeeding has been a great way for my wife to connect with our son, and I'm looking forward to that with our unborn child. And it's been challenging, but it actually brought us closer together.
Darren, you're smiling. Say something.
I smile because I'm happy. One thing that came from breastfeeding that I didn't expect, teamwork, is my wife and I have became stronger partners because of the process of breastfeeding. And I mentioned process because it is a very hard process that affects your sleeping habits, and you have and you still have to function on and be an adult. So I think teamwork is essential, and it made us closer because of the breastfeeding.
I think for us, breastfeeding, well, for me, breastfeeding is probably the best thing that we could have done for our kids. Just that early start, but then you see, how many things that they're like, well, they're smarter, or they've gained more weight, or they're healthier because they breastfed. So I think it's probably the best thing that we could have done for them.
I'm actually nervous, but the best thing, I guess, it was just happiness, just seeing the bond between my baby. It was just really exciting just seeing it. That's really all I got to say.
Yeah. Walter.
I'm also nervous. No, I'm just kidding. My wife's a lactation consultant, so I had no idea going into it the value from a health perspective, but also from a bonding perspective, as they've mentioned. And it's been just a fascinating thing to watch evolve, especially as he learns about his mother and connecting with her. So that's been incredibly special and educational at the same time.
All right. So what does the fathers have to do with breastfeeding?
Just watch.
All right. Just watch.
Actually, our role is pretty important. It's not as important, obviously, as the woman, but it is pretty important in that we have to support and encourage. We have to kind of learn a lot ourselves to be prepared to give good advice, to try to help out in the process as much as we can. I was thinking about this earlier. It's really hard to tie a tie without a mirror. And especially if it's something that you've never done before, it's pretty difficult. And the same can be true for breastfeeding when you're trying to secure a latch. It's a really difficult thing if it's something that you're not used to, and so it's really beneficial to have someone to be able to kind of help you with that and support you and help you get it right.
Okay, my role, I'm the trainer. I'm the trainer in the corner, I'm the one that's encouraging her, uplifting her, and how they got the sweat towel? I'm the burp towel guy, So that's what I do, and I just make sure that there's no drizzle, and then when the milk is just squirting, I wipe it off the stomach. So I'm the trainer, I'm the guy in the corner that says you can do it. So that's who I am.
I think my role is support. I think I think my wife is probably the strongest person that I know, but there are times when she's not. You can't be strong all the time, and so I kind of like to fill in those gaps. There's a story that we like to tell, that we like to share. That she wanted to breastfeed, and we breastfeed all three of our kids for a couple of years. I say we, I guess I'm part of that. She did. But there was a moment early on with our first. We were home, we were away from the hospital, away from lactation consultants, and Isaac. Of course, this was 2003, so this was a long time ago. But we were. I had a second job. I was delivering newspapers, and so I was normally going to be up at 3 or 4 in the morning. But then there was this really loud crying, and I walked downstairs and there's my wife in tears with our baby on her shoulder, and she's sitting with the boiling pot of water, and there is the bottle of formula right there with the gift bag we got from the hospital that we needed just in case. And I looked at her and I said to her, "What are you doing?" And I said, in a very calm, assertive, supportive, husbandly voice, "We are not doing that." Because I knew that we had pre-decided before that we were going to breastfeed, and we had a plan, and I got educated. I think we got educated mostly in the hospital. We spent 9 months in breastfeeding and baby in a delivery, childbirth, thank you, in childbirth classes, but there was not an ounce of training before we got to the hospital. So, us guys, we say, okay, whatever you want to do, honey, and to be supportive with that. But I knew she wanted to do this, so we're not going to do that. So I took the bottle of formula, which was free, so I had no problem doing this, and I took it and I dumped it down the sink. And I said, we're not going to do that. And we opened Dr. Sears's book and said, here's how, let's figure this out. And she got involved with the Leche League and so forth and so on. And now she's helping put on this conference. So that's kind of the story of
Sam, we can do it.
What was my role? I was the guy that was just there when she was crying and, being very emotional. And, I was always there. Come on, you can do it. And she'd look at me. This is it. I'm not doing it no more. And I tell her, come on, let's keep on doing it. That's what I used to do every day.
I don't really have a lot to add. They've covered the bases, but I guess I was the voice of reason, because there's always a sense of panic, a sense of not knowing what you're doing, particularly with your first one. And you don't get a lot of training, like they mentioned, and it's one of those, particularly when you're the dad. There's zero training. There's no, hey, this is how it's going to go, or no one really prepares you for the ride. But as the father, you have to be almost the rational, calm voice of reason, and just to help your wife and your child through that particular phase, because it gets really tough. And luckily, I was able to do that for her, because she also had a moment of, let's do the formula, because there's fears of milk supply getting low. But we fought through it and persevered, and she produces way more than we need now. So it's great.
Now, I want to bring you back before when the discussion about the option of feeding the baby came. How was the conversation? Who started it? Who had the idea? It was your doctor, it was your mother-in-law, how this thing of conversation of breastfeeding started? Whoever wants to start. Aaron?
I'll start. My wife, she was in school for her nutritional master's, and she met Becky. And Becky was a big influence for her, and she really got into that whole child nutrition and breastfeeding thing from there. And so after that class, she came home and immediately told me, we're going to breastfeed, and this is why. And I nodded and said, okay. and she was very determined and very, it just meant a lot to her. And so when something means a lot to her, it means a lot to me. And then she was telling me about the benefits and how it could prevent certain things or how it could promote other things, especially in health. And so that's how that conversation pretty much went. She told me and I listened and I said yes.
It was about the same. I remember when she first got pregnant, she told me, she said, we're going to breastfeed. And I was like, really? You want to do that? And then she just kept on going on and on. I said, okay. Then we met Danielle after we had the baby because she couldn't latch. And I just started just being a part of it, ever since.
Well, for us, it was kind of a norm. Ingrid's mom breastfed her and her brother, and my mom breastfed me and my brother and my sister. So it was kind of a norm for us. She talked about the benefits, and of course she tuned into my guy ears, so I might have tuned out a little bit. But she said, "You'll never have to wake up in the middle of the night." And I said, "Okay, let's do that."
Well, for myself, initially it was a thought, but with a question mark, because in the hospital they pose it as an option, Then you have formulas, quicker, there's benefits, immediate gratification. And then we went to the Indian clinic and met Miss Danielle, and it was not an option, it was a mandate. And so my wife got excited, then I got double teamed, and then from there I had to get on board, and so that's what happened. Miss Danielle kind of gave it that extra push, and then we did it. So yeah.
It's interesting. I think at least three of us have Miss Danielle in common. And whether or not, now actually we had her as a doula, and my wife already kind of had the thought to breastfeed. But once we brought Danielle on as a doula, there really wasn't a thought it was going to be breastfeeding. And I had no problem with that. I'm an accountant, so I had already done the numbers for formula. It didn't make any sense to me. God gave you some milk. Why would you go buy some more? So, and, obviously, there are other benefits, but that one stood out for me.
My next question is all about the African American here. Research or people or somebody say that African American don't breastfeed. And so I want you to tell me, when you went through that experience of breastfeeding, what are the brothers and the sisters say about that? Hello. Okay. We want to, the African American community, the minority, don't breastfeed compared to the majority. So my question is, as African American, how the response in the community was about you nursing, your wife nursing. What did the brothers and the sisters say about that, the church? How did you navigate that decision? And then you can add breastfeeding in public too. Did you have a problem, your wife breastfeeding in front of the brothers and the sisters?
My family live in Alabama, so I never had that problem. But I had, friends and stuff, why is she doing that? It's just horrible, They used to talk bad about it. And I used to be like, that's what she should be doing. I always used to get offended when people say something about it. And, that's about it.
Actually, that's a great question because my mother, tried to breastfeed me and was unsuccessful early on, and so she went on to the formula. My wife's mother, I believe, she used formula, and so they were encouraging. They liked the idea of my wife breastfeeding, but when we ran into some complications with latching and making sure we had enough milk, they were kind of among the first to say, all right, it's time to get onto that formula. And so that was a bit challenging, to navigate through, some of their pressures of, hey, you guys need to go ahead and start considering formula. And that was kind of against what we wanted to do. So that was a little tough.
To piggyback on what he was saying, you definitely get those outside pressures. Especially like from my mother, for example, she tried the breastfeeding thing and she said everything but good things about it. It hurts, didn't work, the milk didn't come, and she was so old, she was spitting out flour probably. It was just a lot of things that she thought, and negativity came about. And so so that you got those pressures. Then it was like, well, if you're going to breastfeed, put cereal in it and things of that nature so you can make sure the baby is full. And we told all these things to Miss Danielle again, and she told us, no, don't do none of those things. You need to be patient. The milk will come. And like she said, the milk came, and my wife was super excited. And, because we had the issues with latching and the milk not coming and not flowing. And she was just like, you guys need to work on patience because it will come. And you're not going to use cereal and things of that nature. You're going to just use breast milk. And we did that. And so I was a person that kind of stood firm and let them know that regardless of what society does, my wife wants to breastfeed, and we're going to support that. And so, you get that cereal and formula thing, but I hate the smell of formula. It really stinks.
Keep the mic. So can you talk about breastfeeding in public? Do you have that questions raised?
Right. So I don't like people in my business. In addition to that, I'm a research person with my degree of choice. And so I looked and see if there's any type of new technology in regards to breastfeeding. Then we stumbled upon these laws in Oklahoma that promotes breastfeeding. My wife seen that. She was like, see, I'm going to do it in front of everybody, restaurant. I don't care. So from there, I was like, hey, I don't want nobody seeing your goodies. So we got this thing that comes over your neck and like covers everything, and she can see. So we both benefit for this like breast cover thing majig. I don't know what it's called, but
that's the name of it.
Yeah. So getting those breast cover thingamajigs work perfectly. So yeah.
As far as I think it gets easier with each kid with each subsequent child. The first one, you're sitting in church or something. I felt like I was the booby police. I was looking around, like seeing who's looking at. I'm like, no one's looking. And then I found out that I was actually making my wife more uncomfortable than myself. And so, by the second one, I'd be kind of calm and not look around, try not to make her nervous. The third one, I don't really care. If she can do it wherever she wants, I'm like, listen, as long as she's getting fed, I don't really care. So.
In Tulsa Zoo, she decided to breastfeed, and it was just uncomfortable. But people walking by, I was like, hey, what are you doing? They looking. I kept on saying that, and she didn't care. She kept on doing it. And then, we had a talk. She said, you got to be more supportive. So the next time, I said, just do what you do.
The first time we went out to eat, she tried to use the boob cover thingamajig. And we never did it again. It's too much work, and really, he should be able to eat just as anybody else is. And I think that's the thing people don't understand. It's just been some taboo thing, but my wife's in the crowd and she's going to hate me for saying this, but she can't watch anyone make out on TV. Like it just completely makes her uncomfortable. And then one day we're walking through the Paseo during the arts festival and she just sits down and pulls out her boob and feeds. And to me, that was one of those moments where it's like, oh, okay, great. She's comfortable doing it. And then I shouldn't feel uncomfortable being around it. And so it just kind of took that, feeling of discomfort away. And so from now on, I really don't care where she does it. There's been a couple times where people just look at it and they just don't understand. And I'll kind of give them a look like, leave it alone. It's none of your business. And no one said anything yet, so.
My wife had the what's it called? The thingamajig? Yeah. The booby cover thingamajig. And she was too modest to not use that, but she used it very comfortably. She could be talking to you normally while pulling it out and putting it on and feeding it. She was fine with it. And I was fine with it.
Breastfeeding, most of the time, is benefit for mom, more benefits for infant and benefit for mom. What are the benefits for fathers? Nobody wants to get started.
I'll go ahead and start.
I know your name. I can.
No. I think the ultimate benefit is just a bit of self-satisfaction knowing that you're doing the right thing for your child. I think that's what gets overlooked by a lot of people is like, oh, she's feeding in public or, that's weird or whatever. But it's ultimately you're doing the right thing for your child so that they can grow up healthy and get what they really need, which is also just the connection with the mother. And that's ultimately what I got out of it.
It's a hard course. I really don't know. I really don't know.
It's all right.
Come back.
We'll come back.
Mark.
Well, like I said earlier, I was trying to think of this selfishly because you'd think it is the best thing for your kid, but for me, yeah, I did get a lot of extra sleep, which was pretty nice. So that's definitely a benefit. Dads will perk up for that. But the thing, and this does reflect back to my wife, but I've never seen her more at peace or at joy or happy than when she's breastfeeding. And if mama ain't happy, ain't no one happy. So, right? So if mama's happy, I'm happy. So it's that type of thing for me.
Okay. Wow. So I'm going to go with a definition of father, which means to fatten with knowledge. And I was researching that breastfed babies tend to do better than non-breastfed babies from a scholastic perspective, academic things of that nature. And then development. And then I start seeing it on the charts. And then they were saying that the baby was above average. So I was like, yeah. It's like, yeah. So that really, made me feel good because I feel like my role as a father is to invest in my children. And I feel like that's an investment in, if all I have to do is support my wife during this period, that's easy. So there you go.
What everybody else said, plus the money.
I am sure you learned something from the process of breastfeeding, right? Now, when you learn something, you cannot keep it in your heart. So how did you use that knowledge that you got now to empower people with that knowledge in your community? Did you talk about it at work, the church, your neighbor? And how do you support your brothers, your sisters, your cousin to support their wife?
We had some unique challenges when it came to latching in the first maybe 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. And we couldn't quite get it figured out until it was discovered that our son had a lip and tongue tie. And, that's something that oftentimes does not get seen when the child is born, and it can go uncorrected, and it can ultimately cause a lot of developmental issues if it doesn't get corrected at some point. We were lucky enough to identify that and to correct it. And after about a week or two, latching became much more normal, much less painful, and the process went a lot smoother than it had ever gone before. But without having, uncovered that, we would have struggled, and we probably ultimately would have, went to formula. So when I talk to people that are considering breastfeeding, especially those that have newborn children and maybe they're experiencing some issues with latching in the first few weeks, I always ask them to consider the possibility of that, because it's something that doesn't always get identified early on.
Doing things like this. Yeah. So in addition to listening to Miss Danielle, participating in this, Hope Pregnancy Center offers like parenting class and things of that nature. And there's a mother track and a father's track. And so when I meet with the other fathers, I try to share my testimony with the pros and cons of breastfeeding and the humbling process at which it entails as well. So things like that.
Yeah, well, I guess what I would tell my coworkers or people around me that we were breastfeeding, I'd always get I was actually kind of proud of it, because there were so many people like, well, yeah, my wife tried to breastfeed, but we really couldn't get it, and we really couldn't get it done. So I would have to stop and refrain myself from saying, well, did you try this and this? Because that's just I know way more than I probably should know as a guy about breastfeeding. So, but just to continue to support my wife, obviously this became a passion for her, and it has it's changed our life. So.
Yeah, I was always telling people, but they weren't listening. The same old. But I used to always tell my mom. She used to be like, "Really? You need to tell her to go to formula. It'll be much easier for her." And I used to be like, "No, Mom, it's the best thing for the kid." I said the baby will be smarter, stronger, and right now he's growing, he's strong, he's smart. That's all I can say.
Really what I've been able to do is, a lot of my friends, they're single guys, they're just kind of hanging out and watching sports. And so I've been able to kind of teach them a little bit about the benefits, really. And it's really weird, because they'll always ask, like, do you guys breastfeed? And I'm like, yeah, of course. And they're like, why? And so then, like, Mark, I know way too much. And then I have someone like my wife, who's a lactation consultant, who just keeps teaching me things. Like, I'm forgetting normal day-to-day life things because I'm learning lactation stuff. And so there's been times where I'll just tell someone, like, oh, no, don't be nervous about doing that. Just do it. It's okay. And it's kind of been trying to help other people who probably feel uncomfortable just doing it, feeding in public, and just letting them feel like it's okay. It's like, it's not going to bother me. And so that's kind of the things I've been able to do so far.
Now, each one of you, one was the most challenging moment or event that you experiment in breastfeeding. One challenge you had in the process of breastfeeding. Can you share that and how you overcame that challenge? That one thing. It could be sleeping, it could be me time, it could be something else. I don't know.
Are you saying as a father, like as individuals, what was the most challenging, or as a family unit, what was most challenging?
Breastfeeding is connected. You cannot separate breastfeeding from parenting.
Very, very true. But you said me time, and me time isn't in the family union. That's not in the contract. But yeah, I gave up on the me time when we had a kid. That I'm finally starting to get a couple of minutes now. But as far as our biggest challenge, I spoke to it a little bit earlier. We had some really serious latching issues, and it was really difficult to see my wife at that particular state. She would cry a lot. and she would bleed. And when I would see that, I was like, gosh, I can't imagine. I would have stopped that day. I'd be like, wasn't meant to be. So, to see her persevere through that, to continually research and reach out to people for more information, for more advice, for more resources. It was amazing to see her go through that and to come out of it on top. But it was really difficult because what can I do other than say, baby, it's okay. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Let's try this. Let's try that. But you can't necessarily fix it. All you can do is encourage and support. So it was pretty tough.
Okay, I guess my biggest challenge as a father was accepting that it's no longer about me. I mean, it wasn't ever about me. I'm just saying it. But when the baby comes, it's really not about you. And so it took me a while to kind of get that. Not saying I'm an attention seeker. But, I like the, hi, baby, love you, baby, but then she's like, oh, I got the baby, I got to go, so getting hugs and things were kind of like out of there for a while. But I guess the biggest thing for me was when my wife wasn't developing the way that she should from a milk production perspective, and like seeing her just like saying, crying, and, and I'm, as a man, I'm like, hey, I don't respond well to waterworks. I don't know what to do with my hands. I don't know. Don't cry. That's the worst thing you can do in front of me. I don't know what to do when it happens. And so I'm trying to fix it. But understanding that I can't fix everything was another thing. My wife just kind of just wanted me to just sit there and do nothing. And that was boring to me. I'm like, but that's what she wanted. So you kind of really had to surrender and really just adhere to what your wife is really telling you. So, yeah.
Other than the formula incident in the middle of the night, as far as our challenges went, I think for us it was right out of the gate, especially with the first one, and the milk hadn't come in yet, and we were in the hospital. And we had several challenges in the hospital because I think it was we had great weekday nurses, and then we went into weekend nurses, and then we had shift rotations, and we had different nurses, and lactation wouldn't come see us. And then, of course, we would get all sorts of advice. A lot of it was conflicting. And so that was really hard. We didn't really know what to do. And Ingrid, bless her heart, she was trying as hard as she could. And then the moment comes where it's like, I need to feed my baby. My baby needs to get fed. And so that moment was upon us. And so then I was like, well, let's figure this out, right? So, and then I think we were kind of trying to figure out that he wasn't latching on quite right. I'm like, well, his lip is tucked underneath his, up. And I'm like, that looks like that hurts. And she's like, yeah, that hurts a whole lot. So I did what any chemist does. We don't memorize anything. We know where to look it up. So we went into Dr. Sears' book, and I'm like, there's a picture. I'll remember it. And so I was like, well, you need to pull his lip down, and you need to smush him on your boob, and go to town. And sure enough, that worked like a champ. So I can proudly say I taught my wife how to breastfeed, and I never let her forget it.
The biggest challenge was here. No sleep. It was here. It really was here. Taking these Liberty tubes to the nippy and waking up hour after hour, listening to her cry. It was kind of depressing, but we got over it though. It was here.
Yeah.
I think the hardest thing was our son was born 5 weeks early, and they took him away immediately, and so my wife didn't really get to bond with him as much as she wanted to. But we had problems with the nurses not letting us feed him when we wanted to feed him, and that was one of the biggest challenges. And probably one of my biggest failures was probably not fighting back enough to make sure that I was doing the right thing. But if that happened today, I would certainly be fighting back and making it known that this is her right and this is my child's right to eat. And so that was probably our biggest challenge besides the fact he was born early.
Now we're going to switch. We're going to go to the greatest reward about breastfeeding from your point of view.
I actually told my wife this the other day, and I think it's been mentioned before, that I think the greatest gift is just watching her connect with my son. Because there's there's something there that happens when he latches on. He just kind of looks at her in a certain way, and off they go. And it's just an amazing little moment that happens, and it's just hard to describe, but it's something that I know means quite a lot to her, and so it's just fun to watch, really.
Yeah, it's about the same. You know, the bond, just seeing them together. You know, I grab him, she started crying. She come grab him, he stopped. You know, I take him to the other room. Now he can walk. He walked back up in that. No matter what, it's always trying to get back to her. And you know, I just be like, wow, there's a big bond there.
I think the start that we gave our kids is probably the most one of the most rewarding things. But for us personally, it was the thing that lighted my wife's passion, and she has been so passionate about breastfeeding. I'm so proud of what she's done, and it's nice to see that awaken in someone.
I guess the greatest reward for me was sometimes you get like demons in your head to give you all these negativities. Like, for instance, at the hospital we were at, they had like this bonding time, and it was just with the child and the mother. And so they would literally kick me out. And so, and everybody else, not just me, I'm not being selfish, but I mean, I'm just saying. So they would just kick everyone out so they can just get that chest. And I just kind of like felt like daddies didn't matter. Just like, because that's what society says, that single parents can do it without father. And so that really got in my head. And so one thing about a child, it can either bring you together or separate you. And I'm glad that this child brought us together and put that true glue for us. And my favorite part about the breastfeeding is like the little milk coma. That's what I call it. It's like after the baby is like satisfied, she like goes into like this milk coma and like, yeah, she's like in heaven. So that's the greatest thing. And my wife feels the joy when she sees and that her hard work is paying off. So, yeah.
Kind of like what everybody else said, the bond that the mother and the child develop, it's just uncomparable. My wife was really, really hurt when it was time for her to let it go, when it was time for her to stop, and to stop even when she had to stop pumping when she didn't have enough milk. It was really, really difficult because she really felt that bond, and she loved being able to supply nourishment to our kid. So that was definitely a great reward. Another reward, you know, if the statistics are true that, you know, breastfed babies develop, you know, better and grow better and all that, then it certainly has something to do with the fact that my son is so huge for his age. And if that continues, then there's a high probability that, you know, he might go off to the NBA or something like that. And, you know, breastfeeding will continue to pay off, you know, even decades later for him and for us. So I'm excited about that. He's like the size of a 3-year-old, seriously.
Now, you were invited here. So when they say, oh, you're going to talk in front of ladies, something went to your mind. So what was your expectation before you came today? That's the question.
Well, I thought it would be a bit. I didn't know a whole lot. I thought it would be smaller, and a few more fellas. Yeah, that's probably it. But I mean, she said it was a panel, so I expected to, have to answer some questions and give some insight. But just a few more fellas, probably. No offense. I love all y'all.
Well, I thought that I was going to be on a panel, and people in the audience is going to throw stuff at me from the response. That's what I thought. So, but it was great. 97 people here. Sorry, I'm a numbers person too. So this is pretty awesome. And then this is empowering to me, seeing fathers, because that's not a picture you see most of the time, and actually seeing people that's active in their children's life, it just does something to my spirit. So I appreciate the opportunity to serve you all.
Fear and intimidation came racing in my head. I blocked it till about 2 hours ago, and the thought of standing before a lot of educated women, knowing what I was going to say, and I just really hope I wasn't going to embarrass myself. So that was pretty much.
I was texting Danielle, asking for questions and all kind of stuff. But it's not even that bad, ain't it? Pretty cool.
It met expectations. Not sure. It's actually just nice to see other fellas that went through the same thing. And I wasn't expecting to learn as much from them, but that's kind of the weird part is no one really teaches you anything. And the moment my wife said, I think we can do this, is probably the best moment I've had, because she gained the confidence and then I knew I could back her up. And so that's probably it.
Now you have 32 minutes left. So in 30 seconds, each, do you have a message for the crowd here that I didn't ask maybe? In 30 seconds each. And then we're going to call it 30 seconds.
Teach the fellas more. Like I said, there's no manual for the guys, and they're just kind of winging it. And that's scary for the male, right? Because you're supposed to know everything. You're supposed to be the guy. And when you don't know anything, your wife knows. And so she panics. So just probably should do more panels like this, and try to get the word out and bring some guys in so they can learn a little bit more too.
Constantly just keep on promoting breastfeeding, all the time, and because there's a lot of people just not doing it. And I think it's a good thing to just keep on promoting.
I think education. I think send dads home with a breastfeeding plan instead, as much as you would have a birth plan. I think, especially for all the things that could go wrong, especially at 2 and 3 in the morning, and who to call. So when you don't have the answers. The Oklahoma Breastfeeding Hotline, the number is 235 milk. Is that right? 271 milk.
I guess just letting us know as Father that we do serve a role, and it's helping us in our slow mind thinking, suggesting